Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first webinar of the AI Weather Quest, the Quest launch webinar for this new competition by ECMWF to enhance subseasonal predictions with AI ML. So we will leave maybe a minute for all the participants to join us.
Oh, nice. Did it start like
in the meantime, I can already say that this webinar we will focus on giving you an overview of this new competition that you probably know already a bit about since you joined us today, but maybe you don't know so much about the background of the competition. We will also deep dive into the guidelines with you, present you with the engagement tools, and really leave you also the floor to ask your questions if needed at the end. So let's wait a few seconds, maybe a minute for everyone to join. Okay, I think it's 2 minutes past 10 and people will join as I go. So I will start with the agenda of today. So today we will start with about 25 minutes of presentation. As I said, we will introduce you to the quest. We will also talk about the context in which the quest was created, what are subseasonal predictions, how can AI and ML be leveraged in that context. Then Joshua will deep dive into the rules, the evaluation system, and the resources that you can use in the competition. And then I will present you with the engagement tools that we put in place throughout the competition. And then the rest of the session, about 30 minutes, will be dedicated to questions and answers. So you will be able to ask your questions in the chat. You will be able to raise your digital hand and ask any question that you need to partake into the competition. In terms of housekeeping rules, I have to say that this session is currently being recorded. So, of course, if you do not wish to appear on the recording that will be made accessible on the website, please turn off your camera. And please make sure that during the 25 minutes of presentation, you do mute the microphone, but then you are very welcome to take to the floor to ask your questions. Also, before we start, I think the whole organization team wants to say a big thank you to the advisory board for supporting the conception of the competition that we will present you during this webinar. Okay, let's dive in to the introduction to the quest. So the quest, it's a global competition, an international competition organized by ECMWF. And the goal is really to uncover the best performing AI ML models for subseasonal weather predictions. So the main objectives of us launching this competition is to understand what the latest developments are in terms of AI ML models for subseasonal prediction, also to create a very fair, standardized, transparent approach for benchmarking those AI ML models, and finally to bring together the AI ML and the methodology community. So this competition is really for anyone who feel that they can leverage AI ML models to improve weather predictions. You don't have to have any kind of methodology background to partake into the competition. What you do have to do is that you want to use AI ML models for weather prediction. You want to maybe gain global recognition for your work. You want to increase your knowledge about AI ML based forecasting models. And maybe you want to make connections with peers, also with people at ECMWF that are working on this topic. The competition will be divided into 2 phases that will each be subdivided into 13 weeks period. So first, the initial training phase, it's starting today and it will end around mid-August. And the goal of this phase is really just for you to have the time to get ready to be competitive. So develop and refine your AI ML models. With the testing GGA, June, July, August period, that will start on the 15th of May, you will be able to already submit your subseasonal forecast, but this will be self-evaluated by yourself, and the results of the competition will not yet be accessible on the website. So you will be able to submit your forecast in a non-competitive environment. Then during the competition phase, that is also subdivided into 13 weeks period, you will be able to submit weekly real-time forecasts over as many periods as you choose. And during this phase, of course, we will be in the competition phase, so results will be continuously displayed and teams will be ranked on the AI Weather Quest website. So the competition phase will start on the 14th of August. And I'm also only realizing now, I think I did not present myself in the beginning, but now that we have more participants online, it's maybe the good time to do so. So I'm Olga Loegel. I'm the User Engagement and Outreach Associate at ECMWF, and I'm leading the organization of the AI Weather Quest. And on this note, I will give the floor to Frédéric, who will present you with the background of the competition.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Frédéric Vitart. I work in the research department at ECMWF, where I lead the team on subsidial prediction. My role in this competition is to oversee the scientific content. So this competition focuses on subsidial prediction, which covers a time range beyond 2 weeks, but less than a season. And it's a particularly interesting timescale because it fills the gap between weather and the climate forecasting. This is also an important time range for many applications like agriculture or energy. So the predictability at this time range comes from the atmospheric initial conditions, as in weather forecasting, but also from the slow varying boundary conditions, such as the land, ocean, sea ice, as in seasonal forecasting. However, this time range is a bit too long, is often too long for the atmosphere to still retain a memory of its initial condition, and is often considered as too short for the slow varying boundary condition to evolve enough to provide the predictability beyond simple persistent. Therefore, it's a very, very challenging time range for prediction. Next slide, please. So operational subsidial forecasts are currently produced using dynamical models in a way which is similar to medium range forecasting. They are produced in 3 steps. The first step is the initialization, where we collect observations, and then we use the data simulation system to produce the initial condition for the model. The second phase is a forward integration. At ECMWF, we run a co-pollution atmosphere model for 46 days. And because atmosphere is chaotic, the forecasts at this time range are not deterministic, they are probabilistic. So we run the model 100 times every day, and with a slightly perturbed initial condition, so that we can sample uncertainty coming from errors in the initial conditions, but also error from the model formulation. And then we have a third part, which is a forecast calibration, because at this time range, the model drifts towards its own climatology, which can be quite different from the observed climatology. We cannot issue forecasts directly from the model output. We need to calibrate the forecast to remove the model systematic error. So that's the phase what we call the calibration. And we need also to produce the charts. So over the recent years, there has been a revolution in the use of AI for weather forecasting. Those AI methods can be used in many different ways to improve weather forecasting. They can be used in the initialization phase to improve the data simulation methods. They can be used in the forward integration phase to provide improved model physics parameterization. And they can be used as well in the third stage to provide improved calibration, downscaling, maybe multimodal ensemble generation. But they can be also used to replace completely the system or part of the system. In recent years, some data-driven methods, which have been trained on reanalysis, have outperformed the best performing weather forecasting system, at least for some parameters. So in this competition, we try to answer 2 important questions. First one is, can data-driven AI methods be a substitute to dynamical models? So here we are targeting the data-driven methods. But we also would like to answer the question, so can AI methods produce better calibration multimodal combination? On this last question was the main focus of a previous competition, which was organized by the WMO a few years ago. Next slide, please. So at the time range, at the similar time range, there is a very low predictability in the change of weather from day to day. However, it has been demonstrated that if we use longer time averages or longer or larger spatial averages, we can increase the forecast skill horizon. For example, for seasonal forecasting, the products are usually produced on seasonal means or monthly means. For subseasonal prediction, the typical time average is a weekly mean, and this figure, this plot, is a typical chart from the ECMWF model, which shows the probability of a weekly mean to meter temperature to be in the upper quintiles. So the red colors indicate high probabilities of temperature being much warmer than normal. And the blue magenta colors indicate areas where there is a high probability to be low probability, to be much warmer than normal. So this type of forecast is similar to the forecast we ask the participants to produce for this competition. We'll ask the participant to produce quintiles probability for 2 meter temperature, mean sea wall pressure, total precipitation for week 3 and week 4. So the way we compute quintiles at ECMWF is explained on the right part of this slide. The first stage is to define the boundaries of the quintile, and so the 20%, 40, 60, 80% distribution. And for that, we don't use the climatology from ERA5, but we use the climatology computed derived from historical reforecast, which at ECMWF cover 20 years. We do that because, as I said earlier, the model drifts towards its own climatology, which can be quite different with ERA5. So those boundaries between the quintiles varies with lead time, so they are not the same for week 1, week 2, week 3, and week 4. And once we have computed them, then we compute the number of ensemble members which fall into each category. And from that, we can define the quintile probability forecast. So I will leave the floor now to Joshua Talib, who will cover the technical aspect of this competition.
Yeah, thank you, Frédéric. Next slide, please. So as Frédéric says, so just to introduce myself, I'm Joshua Talib. I work here at ECMWF based at the Reading site, and I'm a subseasonal forecaster. So as Frédéric explained, we're focusing on probabilistic quintile forecasts at a 1.5 degree latitude and longitude resolution. We're asking for forecasts of near surface temperature, mean sea level pressure, and precipitation. And as Frédéric said, typically at subseasonal timescales, we focus on weekly characteristics. So we're asking for weekly averages of near surface temperature and mean sea level pressure, and weekly accumulations of precipitation. The lead times that we're asking for forecasts to be submitted are at days 19 to 25 and days 26 to 32. And the time scale that this focuses on is on Monday to Sunday, which will become clearer when I show you the forecast submission schedule. We've given the opportunity, so as you'll see, if you've registered for the AI Weather Quest, you can bring together a team that will aim on producing a new set of subseasonal forecasts. And we've given the opportunity for each team to be able to submit forecasts from 3 different sets of AI machine learning models. Now, you may decide as a team that you want to change the rollout training, or you may change the historical data sets that you use, but you still want to keep different models that you submit to the quest. And therefore, we're allowing each team to submit up to 3 different AI machine learning models. So if we've got 3 variables and we've got 2 lead times, and we're allowing each team to submit 3 models, then there's a maximum expectation that a team could submit up to 18 forecasts. Now, it may be the case that you're in your research group, or you're an individual, and you're thinking to yourself, actually, Josh, I've got a really good model that can predict 2 meter temperatures at lead time of 19 to 25 days. And I only want to submit 1 model of 1 variable at 1 lead time. That's absolutely fine. You can do so. And we will be evaluating all of the variables at all lead times as individual leaderboards. So even if you submit 1 forecast at 1 lead time, you won't be penalized in comparison if you're someone that submits all 3 variables and 2 lead times. Just to note, to submit a forecast to the AI weather quest, and there are full details on how you can submit a forecast found on the website and through a Python package. However, you must be registered to the AI weather quest on the website. When we allow the forecast to be submitted, we do a check that the team name and model name has been registered through the website. And if it hasn't, your forecast will not be able to be submitted to ECMWF. Now, if we move on to forecast evaluation, for all three variables, we'll be evaluating forecasts against error 5T. This is the real-time, the latest output of the reanalysis product that's produced here at ECMWF. For near surface temperature and mean sea level pressure, we will be evaluating forecasts against 6 hourly resolution data that comes from ERA 5T. Meanwhile, for precipitation, we'll be evaluating forecasts against hourly ERA 5T weekly accumulations. Similar to previous, we'll be evaluating forecasts at the 2 lead times. What we'll do is every week we'll be publishing weekly leaderboards on our website. These weekly leaderboards will show 2 things. First, they will show the latest ranked probability skill scores associated with the latest set of forecasts that have been published. This will mean that through any time of the competitive period of the competition, you'll be able to go online and you'll be able to see the latest leaderboards associated with each variable and each lead time. So, for example, you can imagine, let's say we experience a heat wave in Northwest Europe, and we want to see who are the best models at predicting that certain case study. We can check on the website once that forecast has come out and we've gone past the event, and we can see which models best forecasted that certain case study. In addition, we'll be computing the average rank probability skill scores associated with the whole competitive period within a 13-week period. And these, what we're calling period average scores, will also be shown on the website. In terms of competition winners, we will firstly focus on models that produce predictions for 3 variables at the 2 lead times, and we'll take an average rank probability skill score across the 3 variables at both of the 2 lead times. And these models will be congratulated if they have the highest average rank probability skill scores at the end of each competitive period. However, as I've said, we're also hoping to allow participants to submit forecasts for a single variable, and we're also hoping to spotlight the exceptional models that are focused on a single variable during the competitive phase. In addition, for those who have submitted and have registered for the competition, you'll notice that we ask for a lot of information in terms of computation resource and how your team is built up. And the point of this is to enable us to highlight exceptional models that have come from low computational resource who come from a less well-experienced background. Just to highlight, to be eligible to be a competition winner, you must submit a forecast across every week within the competitive period. This is because we calculate the average rank probability skill score using forecasts from every week within the competitive period itself, and therefore to be eligible, you must submit a forecast every week. In addition, and the model questions can already be found on the website, we're asking in the last 4 weeks of the competitive period that the team leader or a team member completes a model questionnaire. So this is a questionnaire where we ask you essentially the basic foundations of your model. What data sets does it use? What IT infrastructure? And how did you approach certain challenges? Just so that we're aware and we're allowed to present, when we present the winners of the competition, we have a bit of background of what was involved in terms of model development, and it will also enable us to continue collaboration here at ECMWF with the team that created some of the exceptional models that we receive as a competition. Next slide, please, Olga. So this is the forecast submission schedule. So this schematic can be seen on the website, where essentially on the left here, we're going down week number, so week 0, 1, 2 to 6. And essentially, we're asking forecasts to be initialized on the Thursday of week 0, so day 1. To submit a forecast, you will use the specifically defined AI WeatherQuest Python package, and all of this resource can be found on the website, including a read the docs documentation, where we provide detailed examples on how you can submit a forecast. For the forecast itself, we're opening the forecast submission to be open from Thursday to Sunday. This is to ensure that if any of you have any technical issues or find it challenging to submit a forecast on a Thursday, maybe you've got commitments at work, we're opening the forecast window to a total of 4 days so that you're able to submit a forecast over a longer period. However, just to clarify, we ask that only data before this Thursday initialization date is used. So, for example, if as an operational centre you're only able to submit forecasts on a Friday, then we request that you only use information before Thursday. As you can see, we then have 2 forecast windows, so week 3 and week 4, which correspond to what we've called days 19 to 25 and days 26 to 32. However, I'd also highlight something that's pretty cool that's going to happen on day 5. What we plan to do is host all of the submitted forecasts on an ECMWF designed forecast portal. So for anyone that's used to looking at ECMWF charts, we're essentially going to host a similar portal where we will show all of the quintile probabilities from all of the forecast submissions online. So we'll be showing the near surface temperatures, the precipitation and the mean sea level pressure at both lead times from all participants. And what we hope this will do is it will enable us to engage with users of this forecast data and be able to investigate regional case studies in the forecasts that we see. Next slide, please, Olga. So in terms of evaluation, so after these 2 forecast periods have taken place, so we have week 3 and week 4, we'll then perform our forecast evaluation during week 5. As I've said previously, all of our evaluation will take place in comparison with ERA 5T, and on day 37, we will publish the latest ranked probability scores on the AI WeatherQuest website. Just to highlight, you will be able to perform your own evaluation, and as part of the AI WeatherQuest Python package, we've made it quite simple for you to download the post-processed recent observations yourself, as well as the historical quintile boundaries that we use, so that you can work out your weekly ranked probability skill scores. I should also say that these observations, as well as historical quintile boundaries, are available on the website from 2024 to around about February 2025. So if you want to test the system yourself, you're very welcome to. Next slide, please, Olga. Finally, as part of the competition, we've also put together some post-processed initial training data, which you may choose to leverage as a team to start developing your sub-seasonal forecast models. So specifically, we've put on weekly means of ERA 5 near surface temperature and mean sea level pressure, as well as weekly accumulations of ERA 5 precipitation. This data sets go from 1979 to 2024, and whilst they compute weekly means, it's done at a daily resolution. So you can imagine that a weekly mean occurs from Monday to Sunday, and then Tuesday to Monday, Wednesday to Tuesday, etc. We're also highlighting that you may choose to leverage other data sources that are out there, including initial atmospheric data that's available through the ECMWF Open Data Catalog, as well as dynamical subseasonal forecasts that has been put together through a collaboration of the World Weather Research Programme and the World Climate Research Programme, which enables at latency of 48 hours for you to receive the latest subseasonal forecasts that comes from the dynamical models. Just to clarify, as a competition, what are we not supporting? So unfortunately, I mean, it's great. We've had a lot of interest in the competition, and I imagine we'll get quite a few teams that will be submitting some sub-seasonal forecasts, and we're unable to support individual requests for certain data retrievals, as well as support for model development. We're unable to provide actual access to high performance computing resources. However, we are able as an organisation to support European members in their applications to leverage European initiatives. And then finally, something which I think is quite cool is the fact that we'll be hosting some of these forecasts on the ECMWF portal. However, we won't be able as a competition to develop sort of bespoke sub-seasonal forecast products through this portal in the first stage of the competition. Just to highlight from a scientist point of view, I'm really excited in what we can achieve through this AI WeatherQuest. We're going to be benchmarking the latest advancements in AI machine learning forecasts on sub-seasonal forecasting. We're hoping to unite a community of experts who are leading future developments in subseasonal forecasts, and ultimately through the forecast portal, hopefully share the latest state-of-the-art machine learning and AI forecasts with a diverse range of users. Thank you. I guess back to you, Olga.
Yes, so to finish this round of presentation, we also wanted you to be introduced to the different engagement tools that you can use to connect with your fellow competitors, but also with us, the organizers. So first of all, let's start with the forum. So we have a dedicated AI Weather Quest forum that will be used for our announcements. For example, I think Joshua already maybe 2 weeks ago posted an update on the evaluation system, but it can also be used by you, the competitors, to discuss between each other, or if you have any general inquiries. So if you want to ask us questions that you think the answers could benefit the other teams as well. Then we have a contact form. That's for you to ask your questions that are related to individual matters, to your team or your models specifically. And then finally, you will find on the website a newsletter. If you want to receive the news article around the quest, we plan on publishing this newsletter about once every trimester. So all of these, the forum, the contact form, and the newsletter, you can find at the bottom pages of each web page on the AI Weather Quest website. So you have a banner dedicated to each of them that will bring you directly to the forum, that will enable you to complete a contact form, or that will enable you to subscribe to the newsletter. So don't hesitate to check these out on the AI Weather Quest website. Finally, and of course, that's also what we're doing here today, we will have regular webinars throughout the whole competition, and the aim is really for us to present to you the next step of the competition, for you to ask your question, and also eventually to spotlight your results. So the next webinar will take place on the 2nd of May, is the testing period launch webinar, where we will present you in more details the testing June, July, August period. Then we will have an insights webinar for this testing period, where you will be welcome to give your feedback on the period, and where we will present to you how do we go through from a training phase to a competition phase. And then at the end of each competitive period, we will have an awards webinar. And these webinars, they're really to spotlight you, for you to gain recognition for your work through the quest, and to present your models, your performance, and your progress. I have to say that for the next webinar, and I will repeat it again at the end, the next testing period launch webinar on the 2nd of May, you will be able to register to it as soon as tomorrow directly on the AI Weather Quest website. Okay, and I think we are about 30 minutes in, so it's time to go, as we said, to the question and answers. Do not hesitate to raise your digital hand if you have any questions, and we will give the floor to you. You can also write your questions in the chat, and we will answer directly. And of course, I saw during the whole presentation, I think Nidhi Gopal, you had your hand raised, so I think it's only fair that you start here.
Yes, hello, host and panelists. I have a few questions. First question, do the participants of this competition, AI Weather Quest, will receive a compensation or certificate of participation for participating in this? Second, can non-climate scientists can participate in this quest? Third, what kind of submissions are accepted, presentation or normal Word format? Are there any specific guidelines for submission?
So maybe to start answering the first question, so there's no financial prize for the quest. Of course, you will be able to prove you participated for the quest because every teams will be ranked on the AI Weather Quest website. So indeed, we haven't thought yet about the certificate of participation. That's also something that can be introduced. But to be clear, no, there's no financial prize in participating to the quest. In terms of targeted participants, we really aim to welcome anyone who feel that they can leverage AI/ML for weather forecasting. So that encompasses both also AI/ML experts with no experience, no prior experience with meteorology, and also, of course, meteorologists who wish to develop AI/ML models, but maybe haven't yet delved into that. So I think that also answers your second question, that, of course, as a climate scientist or as a meteorologist, if you are interested in AI/ML, we of course welcome your participation.
I am having one more question. Can individual submit or team submission is necessary for participating?
So this last question, sorry, can you repeat again? If a mission is necessary for participating?
Is the submission necessary for an individual for participating, or team submission is necessary, team's participation?
I can answer that question, Olga. So you are able to submit as an individual as well as a team. So if you decide to submit as an individual, that's perfectly fine. We sort of like to use language teams, so that encourages collaboration and it builds knowledge from each other. Just to clarify, I know you also asked about what kind of submission are accepted. So through the AI Weather Quest Python package that we've developed, it essentially enables you to have a 2D grid of probabilities. So let's say you've got that stored as a NumPy array, or just a simple set of numbers. So probabilities that go through 0 and 1. You'll then be able to extract using Python a simple netcdf file, and then all you do is replace the values in that 2D grid into the netcdf file that you've got, and then you'll be able to submit the forecast to ECMWF, and that is what we're counting as a forecast submission. So we're not expecting any sort of presentation to be developed.
Okay, just the Python code and Python CDF file would do.
Yes, but I should highlight that we at ECMWF provide a template netcdf file so that you can then submit your forecast into, so that it works with ECMWF systems. Because if we allowed people to submit their own netcdf files, the metadata may be different, and then it would involve a lot of post-processing on our behalf to make sure that it works. We'll go through this during the testing webinar, where I provide a step-by-step instruction on how you can extract the necessary netcdf template, and then how you can populate it with your own forecast probabilities.
Okay. Thank you so much for answering.
That's all right. And just to highlight to anyone on the call, if you have any questions regarding the forecast submission process, please do get in touch, because we do want to make it as simple as possible. But obviously, we're also testing these systems in terms of a global competition. So if there's any confusion, please do get in touch.
Yes,
and is there any link or any web page through which we can submit the Python file?
You don't submit the Python. So it's not, you don't submit your Python file online. It is solely using a function through Python, where you give your model name, your team name, and the file, and then you run the function and it will submit the forecast itself. It's all done through the Python system.
Okay. Thank you for answering.
That's all right. Thank you for the question.
Then we have Mohamed Diallo, who asked in the chat, can we only provide forecast only for one variable?
You can provide, you can only provide a forecast for one single variable at one lead time, which is fine. Or you can use your model to produce forecasts for as many variables, so out of the 3, for as many lead times. So each model can be used to produce 6 forecasts. So when I say a forecast, I mean for each individual variable and for each individual lead time. But just to highlight, in terms of the competition winners, will first be based on models that forecast for 3 variables at the lead time 1 and then lead time 2. And then we will look at who is producing exceptional scores for certain variables. I hope that makes sense.
Do we have any other questions? If someone wants to take the floor, do not hesitate to raise your hand or write directly in the chat. In the meantime, maybe I can also answer a question that that came through the contact us form. Okay, I see that there's already one. Given the fact that ERA 5T is used for evaluation, where can we obtain historical ERA 5T rather than ERA 5 for training? Joshua, do you want to
yeah, that is a good question, Frédéric. And I mean, I assume there isn't much difference between ERA 5T and ERA 5, and we don't
ERA
say
5T is available only for a few years, I think it's advised to use ERA 5. Basically, ERA 5 and ERA 5T are fairly close. I mean,
yeah, I can imagine that with the weekly resolution that we're looking at, there isn't much difference between ERA 5 and ERA 5T, especially on the global scale. And we don't store, as Frédéric says, we don't store ERA 5T beyond a couple of years.
With the time constraint kept, can we use other features, variables, other than the three mentioned to forecast them?
I assume this comes from a training perspective. So I can imagine this is asking, can we use other ERA 5 variables outside the forecast variables for training? Yes, you can. Please do. We are, as a competition, we are open to multiple data sets being used, and you are free to use these data sets to train your models. So, for example, you may choose to train on some satellite-based observations, and they may do a pretty good job at predicting near surface temperatures, because we know that the land surface state can be a source of subseason predictability, and you are very welcome to use those variables to train your forecast models.
So some participants in the chat are asking for a direct link. So I'm putting here again the link to the AI Weather Quest website. You will find a web page dedicated to the guidelines. It's called Submitting Forecast, a page dedicated to the evaluation system, a page dedicated to resources. So don't hesitate, everything is on there. In the resources page, we will, of course, add eventually the recording of this webinars and also this webinar's presentation. But you can already, it's for Mayo, Benjamin, you can find everything on the AI Weather Quest website. Notably the links to the Red docs that now Joshua is also putting individually.
Yeah, and just to clarify, for this webinar, we've provided an overview of the competition. However, as Olga said, on the 2nd of May, we're providing a step-by-step detailed instructions on how you can submit a forecast.
We also have now Stefano Schupli, who's asking if we are facilitating individual and organization interested to participate to find other interested parties in order to team up. So yes, indeed, we are. We created the dedicated AI Weather Quest forum that you can access. I will put the link right after I answer this question, but you can at all times access it through the AI Weather Quest website. And in this forum, you can tag the topics, the conversation that you start. One of the tag is notably find teammates. So if you want to participate, but now you are just an individual or you are a small team and you want to collaborate with other teams, don't hesitate to just post a message there. You can present yourself, say how you want to go about participating in this competition, and add the hashtag, the tag find teammates for other teams that are interested into getting bigger to find you. I will put the link to the forum on the chat. Okay, then we have Marco Froelich. There are a large number of powerful open source weather forecasting models, usually trained on data as for this event. Can these be used and, for example, fine-tuned for the competition setting? Of course, giving due credit to the developers of these, else do you expect us to build, train, and fine-tune our models from scratch?
You are very welcome to use open source weather forecast models that have already been developed, and you are very welcome to fine-tune them for the competition parameters and the forecast variables that we're requesting. you are also welcome to build, train and fine tune your own models. We are, this is a very much an open competition. We want to use resources that are already developed, but also give, enable the opportunity for people to develop their own forecast models.
Yeah, we'll just add that if you use one of those open source, I mean, there need to be something added to the value of those models. It's not simply running the model that is already existing. Otherwise, we may get many times exactly the same forecast. But there needs to be some added value in a sense.
Yeah, do we have any other question?
We have been asked, I don't know whether you can see that forwarded from the chat. So this comes from my colleague, Caroline Wainwright, who's from the University of Leeds. She's not asked to put in the main chat, but I think these are good questions for us to clarify for all. So she's asked whether we will calculate other metrics regionally or just ranked probability skill score. To begin with, we'll be using leaderboards to calculate the global ranked probability skill scores. However, at the end of the competition, we will most likely plan to write a publication that provides an overview of what we've learnt. And for this, we will most likely compute other evaluation metrics beyond the ranked probability skill scores that's used for the forecasts. We have changed, thanks for clarifying, we have changed the evaluation product from MISWIP to ERA5T for precipitation. And this was solely due to the fact that non-commercial entities were unable to use MISWIP product without a specific license from the data producers. So as a result, to keep things fair and to enable both commercial and non-commercial users to partake in the competition, we've decided to evaluate precipitation against ERA5T. I should also highlight, though, that as a group, we will also be evaluating forecasts against other precipitation products, such as iMerge, as well as MISWIP, so that online as a competition, we'll be congratulating those forecasts that do well against ERA5T, but in the background, we'll also be comparing forecasts against multiple data sources. And then the final question, can those of us not submitting forecasts also see the results? Yes, you can. So all the results will be published live on the website, and they will host the historical record of ranked probability skill scores for all of the participants that we receive, as well as the latest scores. For those that have registered for the competition, you will also note that you were asked whether you want to remain anonymous for the competition. If you have clicked yes to that box and you would like to remain anonymous, then the historical record, as well as the latest ranked probability skill scores that will be shown publicly, will not be associated with your affiliation or your name. So thanks for that.
Any other questions? Again, don't hesitate. If you don't want to raise your hand, you can also just write in the chat and we will read and answer them out loud. Okay, we have one question from Nidhi Gopal. Can ChatGPT be used in this?
Why not? Yep, you can submit, if you receive your probabilities from ChatGPT, then you are very welcome to then submit that forecast that you receive from it to the competition.
Yeah.
I mean, if ChatGPT ends up being the best team, I think we'll be scratching our heads on what ChatGPT does. So you're very welcome to. And other AI tools can also be used as well.
Yeah, I think in general, the message is that any data sets, anything can be used as long as, of course, you are checking the data sets on license. And indeed, they can be used on their side. But then we are very open on what the participants are using to submit forecasts. We also had some participants asking on the contact us form if there was a deadline to register to the quest. So as you saw, there's quite a long timeline in the quest. We are starting now with the non-competitive, the initial training phase. Then we will have the competition phase, and they're always divided into this 13 weeks period. You can participate in any 13 weeks period, in all, of course, if you're interested, or you can start anytime, basically. The only thing is that for you to get ranked, you need to submit forecast, as Joshua was saying, every week of the period. But if you want to not participate into the first period and then join us for the second period, that's also fine. So you can really register to the AI Web Quest anytime. the registration are not closing. Within a 13-week period, so that's from Tabo Mariana, within a 13-week period, can the model be retrained or does it need to remain the same for a set period? That's a good question, Joshua.
We would request that during the 13-week period that you do not retrain your model, so that we have the same model that's being compared throughout the full 13-week period. For example, you may see that your scores dramatically improve in the final 2 weeks if you've retrained it compared to the first 2 weeks. So it's also helpful for you to have the same consistent model throughout the full 13-week period. Having said that, as a competition and as advised from the advisory board, we are running the competition in 13-week chunks, which means that you can start with a new model every 13 weeks. And we think this is ample time for us to collate a good enough number of forecasts so that we have accurate rank probability skill scores throughout the season. But it also means that as a competition, we can keep up with the latest developments in AI and machine learning that's taken place so that you can change your forecast models as we move into 2026 with the competition. But good question.
Yeah, it's also important to say, I think, that throughout the competition, at any time you can add models to your team. So just as you can add teammates as the competition goes on, you can at any time delete a model, add a model. So of course, we're asking you to do so in between periods so that then you are consistent throughout the period. But at any time you can start the competition, the first period of competition, with just one model and end up with 3 models.
Just to highlight a tool that that could be used by participants, and it's being developed at ECMWF, is Animo. I think that's how you say it. It's not my team, but essentially this is a framework that's been developed at ECMWF that can be used to develop machine weather forecast models. So what this does is it prepares training data sets. It also enables you to conduct model training to produce forecasts that includes ensemble-based forecasts, which is what you may choose to leverage as part of this competition. So a useful tool that you may choose to use as a team.
Do we have any other questions before we close the webinar? To repeat how the variable quintiles are computed, is this DOY, WOY, and pixel dependent? And are these thresholds already available on the platform in the Python package?
Yeah, great question. So the quintiles, we're following the same procedure that's done operationally here at ECMWF. So what we do is we look back on the previous 20 years and we take the day of the year that the forecast is valid for. So for example, Monday to Sunday, and we'll take that weekly mean Monday to Sunday of the previous 20 years. So you can imagine you've got 20 weeks from the previous 20 years that can build up our historical climatology. Now, some of you would say, well, 20 weeks is not a lot to determine what the distribution of that looks like. So what we also do is we expand our set by taking the observed weekly means at a day 2 lag, a day 4 lag, a day -2 lag, and a day -4 lag. So you can imagine if you have a weekly climatology that goes Monday to Sunday, you then also take the weekly climatology that goes Saturday to Friday, as well as Thursday to Wednesday. I'm doing some quick maths in my head. So you have 5 sets for each year. And when you take the previous 20 years of those 5 sets, you have 100 weeks. So we then have 100 weekly means, and from that we work out what the historical quintile climatology is. It is pixel dependent, so we work out what the quintile climatology is at each individual pixel. And these thresholds are already available through the AI WeatherQuest platform. So you should be able to download quintile climatologies up until the end of the 2025, because it's based on the set of observations or based on ERA 5. So, for example, a date that starts in 2025 will use historical data from 2004 to 2024. So therefore, you can receive and download the historical quintile climatologies up until the end of this year using the AI WeatherQuest platform.
Nidhi Gopal, I see that you are raising your hand.
So I think this is related to the quintile climatologies. So Olga, if you quickly go back to the forecast submission schedule,
Yes.
Maybe it's on slide 7. So yeah, so this schematic here. So let's say that the forecast day 19 corresponds to today, so Monday the 17th of March, and that runs to Sunday this week. The quintile climatologies will be based on the previous 20 years of weeks that start on the 17th of March to the 24th of March. So it will run for the 17th to the 24th of March for the previous 20 years. And then as well as that, we will take the weekly means that occur at a lag of -2 days, -4 days, +2 days, and +4 days. And just to clarify, all this information is written on the forecast evaluation page of the AI WeatherQuest, as well as on the read the docs information. And just to say, once again, you can already download the historical quintile climatologies for forecasts that will be issued in 2025.
We have a question from Tyagi Abhinav. I think you are raising your hand.
Yes, thank you, Olga. I was wondering, the Python package AIWQ, you mentioned that with the package we can download ERA 5 data set for training, but did I understand correctly that the model data set, the actual forecast, the subsequent forecast, we have to take care of them ourselves, and in that no assistance as such will be provided?
Yes, correct. So we are not using the AI WeatherQuest to share post-processed sub-seasonal dynamical forecast data. However, ECMWF has been working hard to make it accessible and easy to download dynamical sub-seasonal forecasts from multiple operational centers. And I can provide a link to this data set.
Okay, I understand. Thank you very much.
That's all right. Thank you for the question.
Okay, and finally, maybe to close, I see Nidhi Gopal, you are still raising your hand. Was there a final question?
Yes. Is there any particular date of the month that data should be submitted, or it's just be 1 week like Monday to Sunday as explained? Because I am confused, because data should be, there's written that only data available before the forecast submission windows open should be used. So is there any particular date of the week?
Yeah, so all forecasts should be issued on the Thursday, so day 1. And so let's say this Thursday will be Thursday, the 20th of March. Within that submission, we expect forecasts to include days 19 to 25 and days 26 to 32. So all the forecasts should be initialized on the Thursday. However, because of limited computation resources, or maybe you're busy on the Thursday, we're also allowing those forecasts which are initialized on the Thursday to submit it up to the Sunday on day 4. However, because even though we've opened this forecast submission to be a little bit longer than what's typically allowed, we just request that you only use information that is available before the Thursday initialization date. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much.
That's all right.
Okay, and I think on this, we will close the webinar. So do not hesitate if you have any remaining questions. Do not hesitate if there are individual questions that just on your team, your model, you can reach us through the contact us form on the website. If you have questions that could be of interest for every team, you can also ask them on the forum. As I said, the next registration for the next webinar that take place on May 7th, you will access them directly through the website tomorrow, but I'm also sending you already the link to the registration pages on the chat. So do not hesitate to register as soon as today. Joshua, during this next webinar, will present more in details how to use the AI Weather Quest Python package for you to already submit your forecasts. Thank you very much to everyone involved in the organization. Thank you all for participating to this webinar. And we are really incredibly excited to have you on board. We hope to see your submissions soon already with the initial training period. Thank you very much and see you next time on May 7th. Goodbye.